What's the name from down there at Warmbury, Pete Road?
One mock up.
You got one bus on top of the pond.
Yeah, I've got the remote.
She had a relationship.
Those of you who are too young to know, that was the theme music, the intro music to an old British sitcom called On the Buses, with Reg Varney, and I can't remember who played the conductor. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming along this morning. Could I just ask you, if you have any mobile phones, if you wouldn't mind switching them off or putting them on silent for us, please. And following the service today, there'll be time to stay behind and enjoy some light refreshments. Well, our stars whose light only reaches the earth long after they have fallen apart. And there are people whose remembrance gives light in this world, long after they have passed away. Well, this light shines in our darkest nights on the road we must follow. But as you all know, a very fine gentleman of our community has been lost to us. So we are here today to celebrate the life of Alan James Grinter, who shared his life with us and died at Fiona Stanley Hospital on Thursday, 3rd of October. Alan was just 75 years old. Well, we gather here today in remembrance of a special person in our lives, and in doing so, we become aware that our lives are interrelated and composed of many facets from birth until the final time of death. Now, being here today is yet another of these facets, a meaningful experience of love and friendship for Alan and his family and friends and community, and pardon me, and on their behalf I thank you all for being here today to say goodbye to Alan in a loving and special way. The memory of the friends and family who stood by and offered their support during this time will of course be a consolation to them during those inevitable moments of grief and the accompanying sense of loss. Now, I'm saying family, ladies and gentlemen, and you know that Alan didn't have any family here today in terms of blood family, but he did have family, didn't he? And you know, it's at a time like this that we should think too of the great debt we owe to the past, to all the men and women who have gone before us, and how each of them have contributed something, great or small, to the benefit of mankind as a whole. Well, their work has not only benefited others in their own time, but also future generations. And this is true, of course, of Alan, a much respected member of his community and those around him. But as you know, Alan was 75 when he left us. You know, 75, I think, is just about on the border of being considered old. I'm about there myself. But he does qualify as an older person. And older people are a very special part of our community and of the family tree, and they provide a link with our past and with the past of our parents, our uncles and aunts, our grandparents. Some people, of course, we may never have known. And so they represent the history and survival of our family and provide a feeling of continuity and permanence in a somewhat changing world. So reflecting on our past and our history brings knowledge, comfort and a sense of identity and balance to our lives. And in that way, perhaps this sad occasion can also be a time that brings wisdom and strength, and perhaps even a sense of satisfaction in a way for life lived as well as he could. And you know, the time that we spend here in this chapel is all about being human and expressing a sometimes unsettling mix of emotions and responses. But at the heart of our thought and words, the humanness of Alan celebrates that and what made him tick, his individuality, his character, habits and little quirks. And out of all the gifts, talents and ambiguities within Alan, we realise he reached out his hand and his heart and he's contributed something, and he's left it in each of you. But in the end, what you take from Alan's life and do with it is up to you, of course. But this brief time together reminds us how good it is to be in a positive relationship, to have love and friendship, and to see so much evidence in how Alan lived his life, and that the opportunity to live and to leave some love behind is indeed a fabulous gift. But of course none of us want to be here today. I'm sure we all wish we were enjoying Alan's company, but the reality is that Alan has died. And perhaps the best sense we can make out of his passing is how we deal with it. That's all we can do now, as we come to mourn him, to honour his life, to celebrate it, and of course to say goodbye to him. And certainly Alan's 75 years leave us a great deal to think about. He was a unique individual, and as we celebrate his life today, you can take assurance that he has been, and indeed still is, a part of your lives. You know, it seems to me it's kind of easy to go along with that time-honoured saying that time heals all wounds, but I don't think it's the passage of time that heals or brings resolution, but perhaps rather the way we work through the stages of grief. So perhaps it's important to understand exactly what grief is. Grief is simply love. And it's because we feel such pain, because the inner ache is so great, we get to know the depths of our love. You know, grief simply can't exist except where there's been love and friendship. Well, it's not our task today to deliver a sort of day-by-day account of Alan's life, and nor should we try, and I think nor would he want us to. But rather we can just attempt to capture something of the essence of who Alan was and indeed remains in a few minutes or so. So let's turn now to remember with love and gratitude the life of Alan James Grinter, and I thank Sheila and Mike for sharing with me some of Alan's story. Alan was born in Lewisham, London on the 13th of December 1943 to James and Elsie Grinter. It was wartime and life must have been quite hard on the family. He had three sisters, Vera, who has left us, along with Maureen and Phyllis. As a boy, he helped his dad with his milk round, and when 17, left school and took up an apprentice with London Transport as a diesel mechanic. He worked as a mechanic for a few years before deciding actually driving a bus was a lot more fun. And so he began his obsession with buses. Whilst at London Transport, he met fellow driver John Hennebury and his wife Sheila, who was Alan's conductor, or Clippy as they were more commonly known. And there she is, look, waiting to take him home. The Henneburys had two young children, Paul and Mark, and Alan seemed to attach himself to the family, and so began a friendship that's lasted over 50 years. And in fact, they became family. In 1969, the Henneburys migrated to Australia, and in 1970, Alan followed suit, calling Australia home and becoming a citizen in 1971. He returned to England on several occasions to visit his family, but never wanted to stay. In Australia, he worked as a bus driver, coach driver, truck driver and tow truck driver. And after he retired, he drove a school bus part-time. Alan's hobby was his passion, wasn't it? He was a prolific collector of die-cast models of buses, cars and trucks of all scales. And he also bought and sold models both here and internationally. Although Alan, I'm told, could never be accused of being athletic, he loved sports, mostly by watching them. I think I'm a bit guilty of that myself. He was known to be up at all hours of the night to watch the English Premier League, especially his team, West Ham. I think we've had a little bit of West Ham cap there, haven't we? He also liked AFL, cricket, tennis and English speedway. When he was younger, he regularly changed his car for the latest model. Finance companies must have loved him. While he was tow truck driving, Alan became involved in the Bibra Lake Speedway racing and drove a car for the Ridleys. He then built a car for the Henneby boys to race, and so his expertise as a mechanic came to the fore. He was always independent, and although earlier in his life he lived with Sheila's mum and dad and also the Hennebys on occasion, he usually lived by himself. He was also extremely generous. One had to be very careful about saying you liked something in his presence, otherwise it was likely to turn up the next day. He would do anything for Sheila's family. You only had to ask, and sometimes not even that. He was kind and loyal, a person one was proud to have as a friend. I also told his favourite foods, the cheese and tomato sandwiches, egg and mayonnaise sandwiches and fruitcake. So please stay behind and enjoy some. And I have a little tribute here from Paul I'd just like to read for you. So this is Paul's voice, ladies and gentlemen. Paul says, "Thank you all for coming today to honour the passing of Alan. He was a shy and gentle man who didn't like to impose on other people's time, but would have been quietly delighted you came. Mine is a small family which has become much smaller with Alan's passing. In some ways, he touched all of us, but I will remember him for his generosity." Thank you, Paul. Well, I'm sure most of you know that Alan had been ill for some time and had had a leg amputated from complications of diabetes. While it might be said that he probably didn't look after himself as well as he could have, he did the best he could. However, his health issues increased and he was admitted to Fiona Stanley at the beginning of June. He fought hard, but certainly found it a struggle as his condition deteriorated. Alan was indeed placed on life support, and his brave fight ended quietly and peacefully at around 10 o'clock on the evening of Thursday, 3rd of October, with Sheila and Paul at his side. Alan left us a much loved and cared about man. I'd like to read you a poem that seems to speak of Alan. This is called How Do You Live Your Dash? It was written by Linda Ellis. It says, "I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates of his lifetime from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came his date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was that dash between the years. For that dash represents all the life that he spent alive on earth, and now only those who loved him know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love, and how we spend our dash." So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? But you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. We could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger, and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. We treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? Well, I think we should all be quite proud of the way this gentleman spent his. So ladies and gentlemen, perhaps we can now just observe a moment or two of quiet reflection on Alan's life, and if any of you would like to make your own silent farewell or to leave a tribute, please feel free to approach and do so. I think we've got some rosemary for you as we do.
The
You know, the measure of a man is not determined by his show of outward strength, or the volume of his voice, or the thunder of his actions, or of his intellect or academic abilities. He's seen rather in terms of the love that he has for his family, his friends, and for everyone, the strength of his commitments, the genuineness of his friendships, the sincerity of his purpose, the quiet courage of his convictions, the fun, laughter, joy and happiness he gives to his family and to others, his love of life, his patience and his honesty, and his contentment with what he has. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come from our time of remembering Alan, and now indeed it's time to farewell him. Well, you know, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, the wife of renowned aviator Charles Lindbergh, and something of a famous and intrepid aviator herself, said this about her husband, but maybe she could have meant Alan, actually known him. But she said only when a tree has fallen can you take a measure of it. It's the same with a man. But Alan leaves us as a genuinely decent man with a generous heart. Sheila and Mike say they never heard anyone say a bad word about him. He was placid, who embraced his new country and became a true Western Australian, following the Eagles and the Dockers. In fact, I'm told he was slightly anti-Pom. Apart from West Ham, of course. Alan also loved watching cricket and supported Australia. He was also keen on watching dance on TV and was the definitive armchair sportsman. He was a man of simple yet sound values, and we know it was dangerous to let him know you liked something. It was indeed, as I said before, likely to turn up in the next day or so. And I think Mike is testament to that, aren't you? We know Alan's main hobby was his collection of die-cast models, and he probably had the biggest and best collection in Australia, maybe even elsewhere. But he did have another hobby. It was to defer any problem onto Sheila. And ask her, or perhaps rather tell her, to fix it. And she did, of course. He was blessed with a sense of humour, but I'm told you might have to look for it. Well, that comes from being a Docker supporter. But I think he might have quietly enjoyed the mischievous and the unexpected. So Alan James Grinter is what we call in Australia a good bloke, and I think his absence on this earth will be noticed. Ladies and gentlemen, soon we'll take Alan on his final journey, and we invite you to follow us outside to farewell him. We'll travel to another place and there be committed to the purifying elements to live again in another way. We are grateful for his life and for what that life has meant to us. We cherish the memory of his words, his deeds and his character, his friendship and his courage, and I think his enduring love. But if I can be allowed at this moment to speak on Alan's behalf, I imagine he'd want to thank you all for letting him be a part of your lives. I'm sure you mean as much to him as he did to you. And I also want to suggest that he might say, now get on with your lives. You all have hopes and dreams, go and live them. And so it's in the consciousness of work well done and a life well lived that death, in the deepest sense, can have no sting, and we now leave Alan to rest in peace. So then, thinking of him, let's leave this place now in quietness of spirit, conscious of the things that really matter in life, and taking Alan's memory with us, resolved to live with respect towards each other. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time out today to farewell a decent man and to say goodbye to him. Remember, Alan, Sheila and Mike and Alan would like you to remain speaking in someone else's teeth, I think, ask you to remain behind and share with us a memory or two, and of course perhaps a cheese and tomato sandwich, or an egg and mayonnaise, and a piece of fruit cake and a cup of tea, of course. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen. May we have our pallbearers, please.
Thank you.